Okay, and then I will start to share my screen. All right. Welcome everybody to our April lunch bunch. Today we're going to be talking about legislation as we did last month. And have some legislative updates and an additional bill that we want to share with you about, and then have just a few things as we are preparing for our lobby day coming up in a couple of weeks, which we're really excited about. And I know a few of you are going to be there. So our agenda today is we're going to give some updates on the ozone legislation, which is what we talked about last month. We have a guest speaker today. Elena Santarella from Blue Green Alliance is going to tell us about House Bill 1307, HVAC improvements for public schools, and how you can help. And then some upcoming events. And actually, Jen is going to also talk about an additional bill briefly that we didn't put on our agenda, but we'll talk about some heat pump benefits in legislation. All right, so was there a question? Okay, just want to make sure. All right, so last month we talked about 3 bills and House Bill 1330, air quality permitting, Senate Bill 166, air quality enforcement, and Senate Bill 165, improving air quality. So this is really the package of ozone legislation that we think is critical to helping solve a good chunk of the ozone problem that we have, especially here on the Front Range. As we mentioned earlier, these are being fiercely opposed by oil and gas. And of course, oil and gas always has a lot of money and power at the state legislature, but we are sort of seeing if possible, like an unprecedented level of opposition to these bills. I think it's been surprising to even the people that have been involved in this for a long time. So really, the good news is that all of these bills are through their first step. So they've all passed their committee that they were originally assigned to. Air quality permitting is going to a second committee in the House. It's going to House Finance on April 15th. So there could be another opportunity for folks to testify or take action on that bill. This one was in committee a couple weeks ago I think 3 weeks ago. And so it's a little bit like the furthest along. So then it'll maybe need to go to appropriations after that in the House before it moves to the full House and then onto the Senate floor. So we don't have a ton of weeks left in the legislature. It ends May 8th. So, just a little over a month left to really get these bills through. And then Senate Bills 165 and 166. Jen and I participated in the committee hearing for these 2 bills, and I think it was 10 hours or so of testimony. And again, fierce opposition from oil and gas. So lots to go up against, but we're working through the process. And so anyway, just wanted to give you a quick update on that. These 3 are going to be on our agenda for Lobby Day. They will definitely still be active, and we'll be fighting to get them passed. Any questions about these bills, or Jen, did I miss anything?
I think you covered it pretty well. It's going to be, just like you said, sort of really pushing it to the end of the session, and there's going to be a lot of work to do. So we're going to need all the help we can get.
All right, so some things that you can continue to do. We have sent out an action alert on ozone. So if you haven't already sent an email on that, please do take action. Legislators need to hear how folks feel, and we don't want them. We know they're hearing from oil and gas, right? We need them to hear from the people that this bill is going to impact. So if you haven't done that already, please do. Feel free to send a second email or make a phone call to your legislators too. That always helps. And then, as I mentioned, 1330 is going to be in the Finance Committee on April 15th at 1:30. You can do it virtually or in person. So if you're interested in testifying, let me know. And I would love to. Jen and I can help you, prepare your remarks and do all of that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, our lobby day will make another pitch for this at the end. So I won't talk about that here. Let your friends know if you want to forward that email on to friends. That would be fantastic. Action as well. And then we also have an opportunity to submit a letter to the editor, and I'll let Jen talk about that.
Thanks. So folks have probably seen letters to the editor in their local paper, the Denver Post. It's an opportunity for the community to be heard on issues that are important to them. And also a great way for us to do some public education and let legislators know how the community feels about whatever issue we're working on in this moment. It's this legislation. So I am going to be actually drafting up a couple examples of letters to the editor. And so if there is anybody here who's interested in submitting one to your local paper, you can use mine as a template. You can use mine exactly if you would like it. I'm happy to help folks work on that and help them figure out how to submit them to their local paper. But it is a really great way to, because elected officials often read the paper to get a sense of the feel for the community's position. It's a really great way for us to support legislation. So if you are interested in submitting a letter to the editor, please just let me know. Thanks.
Okay, so we also wanted to spend some time talking about a new, well, it's not new, but new to this conversation, a bill around helping schools access funds to improve their heating and cooling systems. I am going to turn it over to Elena from Blue Green Alliance, who has been leading this charge, and we're really excited to support this legislation because it has, of course, a direct connection to our kids that if we have school age kids, of course, making sure that they have healthy air to breathe in school and healthy environments to learn in, and of course, reducing the emissions that our school buildings are putting out there. And Mountain Mamas has been doing some green schools work, so it fits in quite nicely with our goals as an organization. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Elena. And Elena, just let me know kind of as I should move forward on the slides.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate you all welcoming me to your meeting today. I work for the Blue Green Alliance, and just quickly, we are a coalition of organizations that are labor unions and labor leaders, and then environmental advocacy groups. So with that, this is like a really good example of the type of policy we work on, that this has a benefit really for the environment and communities, but at the same time is really going to bring good jobs to these schools and to communities and to our state, and make sure that like the federal money that's coming in really goes to uplifting those goals. So where we started was we knew that Colorado has a really bad like infrastructure problem, that some of the schools, like the average age it has here is 40 years old, and we also know there's like a $14 billion funding gap in terms of what is already out there for state funds and what in bonds, et cetera, that schools can access. And if you are familiar at all with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, there's lots of money out there for schools to access to be able to improve this. And it's at the federal level. So it's not going to like cost the state anything. We just have to put a little bit of effort in to help schools access these funds. So we knew we had this infrastructure problem. We know we have this federal money, but we didn't really have a lot of structure to get schools connected to that money. And that's really where this bill is coming from, is how can we help school administrators in rural and disproportionately impacted communities get connected and really impact those communities with kids that we know needs this most, but probably have the least amount of resources at a school level to really access the funds. So what this bill does, if I think the next slide talks about that, it helps them be competitive for federal funding. So I don't know if any of you have like applied for a grant before, but it's really complicated. And this federal funding is like even more complicated than a lot of the stuff that's out there. It has a lot of different stipulations about like Build America and using prevailing wage and apprenticeship programs and just a lot of stuff that school administrators maybe haven't seen before. I know like developers call me up and ask me questions. So it seems a little hard to expect somebody who's, you know, the principal, but also helps with pickup drop off and also like is expected now to like write a grant and all this stuff just seems like a really big ask. So what we did to try to make schools competitive for these funds and really set them up for success, first is to help make sure that they have access to all the programs that are at the state level. So there is one staff member at Department of Local Affairs who is supposed to be providing grant writing assistance to local governments, and school districts can participate in that, but they weren't eligible for matching funds. And so we shored up that like piece of past legislation in our legislation. So now schools have 100% access to all the like resources that the state was already offering. And then beyond that, gave them full access to be able to match up with outside grant writers and still be able to access those like state like supports as well. So those are the two pieces of support for grant writing and matching funds. And then the last piece that helps them be competitive is connecting them to the certified contractors that are required on the competitive grants and give you an extra 20% on a lot of the tax credits that we recognize that, again, this is something that's new. The federal government hasn't really stipulated this on money before, and it's not stipulated on state money. So to be able to know who those contractors are and who's out there was something that we've like, it has been a really big problem. So again, by connecting them to this like state certified contractor list, and those people check the boxes of the federal requirements, makes them competitive, and again, like reduces a barrier that schools might have. And so I think like those are like the technical pieces. This is only applying to federal funding. So like a big question we get a lot is like, what about the BEST grant? And what about, you know, bonds? What about other things that are at the state level? And this wouldn't apply to those. We're really trying to target the federal funding and help schools get connected with resources and also be competitive for those grants. That's really the goal of this here. And we targeted HVAC knowing that it has a lot of like co-benefits. I don't know if anybody is like an HVAC technician, but working with our labor partners at the sheet metal workers who are HVAC technicians, I now have learned a lot about it. And not only does HVAC improvements help with like heating and cooling, which we know is a really big problem for a lot of Colorado schools, that with our like changing climate that we've seen more heat days, we've seen just like more cold days and just infrastructure that is not ready to combat the like climate problems that we're facing. So HVAC addresses that, but it also helps with that air filtration, which we also know like really helps with retention, which is a big problem that schools are facing right now. It's just like absenteeism and retention of students, as well as cognitive functioning. And I have asthma, and I know I went to school in a building built in the 30s, and it wasn't easy to breathe in every single classroom. And we don't want that for students. It makes it hard to focus when you're not just presented with the environment that like helps that. And sometimes we take it for granted, like how much indoor spaces we're in. If you think about indoor spaces all the time, that's the air you're breathing. And we think about it outside with air pollution, but indoor air pollution is also a really big issue. So that's kind of the issue we're trying to combat. And again, bring in these federal funds and help schools connect to them. So hope I didn't overgo my time too much. And we're really appreciative of Mountain Mama's support on this, and hope that you can come to the lobby and talk to your legislators about how much this is important to you and how your local schools would really benefit from this. or even emailing them to tell them that. All of that is really appreciated.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you for bringing this bill to the legislature this year. Again, it's an issue that's near and dear to our hearts, of course, because it impacts our kiddos directly, and for the health of their of their days in school. And I think, there's also a big cost savings benefit to schools for this as well. And, having schools be more energy efficient is not only good for our schools and our environment, but it's good for their budget. And, we know that our schools are struggling and needing more resources, and this is money that can be put back into the classroom. And if there's federal funding to help them do that, that means even more money, can be put back into the classrooms. And so there's lots of benefits to this bill. We're really excited. Are there any questions about what this bill is or why we need it? Or comments? All right. Well, thank you again, Elena. This is going to be on our agenda for Lobby Day as well. Oh, look at this. I have more slides I forgot about, but I think Elena covered all of this. So all right, so let's talk about how you can help on this bill. We are going to be sending out an action alert in the next bit here, maybe a week or two. We're just trying to figure out strategically what makes the most sense and making sure we're getting this issue in front of legislators when they're paying attention and when they're able to pay attention to this bill, because there is just so much going on right now at this time in the legislature. They're dealing with hundreds of issues. So be on the lookout for that email alert. Come to our Lobby Day. We will be talking about this bill on that day. And it will be, critical for folks to be weighing in on this bill. And we also wanted to. Oh, and also one other note on Lobby Day: if you have, kids that are school age or even not in school yet, they're always welcome at our events. But also, if you have kids that want to participate in a Lobby Day and talk about this bill in particular, I think because it could directly impact them so much, that would be a really powerful voice to add. We have a healthy handful of students that plan to attend our Lobby Day this year. So just wanted to put that plug out there for folks who are interested in maybe engaging your kids on this. Invite your friends, of course, to take action, with the email or, coming to Lobby Day, always a really important component. And then we can also help you with a letter to the editor on this issue as well, if you're interested in helping out with that. So any more questions or any other questions or, on this? Okay. Well, thank you again, Elena. And we'll be, feel free to hang out, of course, but if you need to jump, I know you're super busy, so.
Yeah, and I'll just drop our fact sheet in the chat, and at the bottom it has my contact information. If anything comes up in the meantime, please feel free to reach out, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena. That's super helpful. Thank you. So we had one more bill that we wanted to talk with you about. I'm going to hand it back over to Jen, and then we can talk about our upcoming events.
Thanks. Last bill, sorry, it's not in the PowerPoint presentation, but it's HB 1352. It's called the Appliance Requirements and Incentives Bill. And it, excuse me, essentially is a bill that will help incentivize the switch to heat pumps. And so for folks who don't know very much about heat pumps, I'll just give a quick explanation. They are essentially an appliance that can replace both your furnace and your air conditioning. And it is super efficient. And it is run on electricity rather than natural gas. So there's a lot of reasons that we are really excited about heat pumps. There are a few incentives that are happening right now through Excel and the federal government. This one would essentially pass a state incentive as well. So the hardest part for folks oftentimes switching to a heat pump is that upfront cost, because it's not cheap. And so maybe when somebody's furnace is broken down and they're looking at a new furnace, it can be a little closer in cost. But for somebody who really wants to make the switch for all of the benefits that it has for energy efficiency and clean air and helping us with the climate crisis, it can be a little bit more of a lift. And so these incentives are really helping folks by bringing the upfront cost way down. So the incentive would work essentially by going to the companies that are installing them, and then they'll bring your upfront cost down. So you don't have to front that extra money and then wait to file your taxes to get it later. You'll get it right at the time of purchase. It has been through the first committee, the House Energy and Environment Committee, and it also is going to Finance Committee next, and that's on April 18th. And so if anybody's interested in more details on that or testifying on that bill, we'd love your support on that one as well. And that will probably also be part of our lobby day. Thinking the 5 bills we discussed today will probably be the 5 that we will be working on and focusing on lobby day, because chances are slim that any of them will have completed the process by then. So since we're just a couple weeks out. So yeah, any questions on that bill? Super quick rundown, but I know we're tight for time, so always happy to answer questions later. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jen. And we have a video coming out soon on heat pumps that you can learn more about.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. That should be going live today. And let me just see if I can find the link real quick. I'll put it in the chat and folks can check it out. It's sort of a goofy, fun explainer of all things heat pumps. Let's see if I can find that real quick. But I'll let you go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, great. So while Jen's finding that. So a couple of events coming up. Of course, our committee hearing on the April 15th. Jen, of course, just mentioned the additional bill being in committee a few days later on the 18th. So a couple opportunities to participate in committee hearings. Again, this is virtual or in person, and you have 2 minutes to speak. It's not a long period of testimony. We will help you figure out like when you're going to be speaking, and we can text you when you're almost up, to make it as little of a time investment on your part as possible. Sometimes we tend to pick very controversial bills because they have a huge impact, and so sometimes those committee hearings can go a little long, but we want to make it easy for you to participate. Our lobby day is April 17th. This is our big push. We are hoping to have a really solid showing this year, because we have these really critical and yet controversial bills that we're working on. Having a strong showing of moms and kids at the Capitol will go a long way. It's also a really critical time, since all of these bills will still be live, and everybody is kind of rushing to get their bills across the finish line before the clock runs out. And so making sure that they understand what is a priority for people is important for legislators to hear when they're deciding, okay, which ones do we need to make sure get through? So a really important time for us to participate. We'll start between 7:45 and 8 in the morning with a training. We provide light breakfast for folks. Then we go up to the Capitol. Well, we do a training on the bills. Like, you all may have heard most of this because you participate in these meetings, but we'll go through them again. So you don't, have to memorize everything now. You don't have to be an expert by any means on these bills. They just want to hear that you care about them and maybe why. If you don't feel like talking, you don't have to talk either. You're going to be in a group of people along with a lead, Jen or myself or another volunteer who's done this before, and they can, do the talking for you if you just want to observe this first time. And so anyway, it's a really fun day. It's when you don't have to stay until 2. We would love for you to come at 8 so that you hear the training, and we can kind of group you with folks. But if you need to leave, at 11 or something, like, that's fine. We just come and participate as long as you want to or are able to. We can provide childcare if you need it. You can bring your kids up, as I mentioned, to the lobby. We had babies there last year. It was fantastic. It really honestly helps. So one more pitch to come register for our lobby day. And then our next meeting, of course, is May 1st at 12:30. Make sure you keep an eye out for that. And we'll be like 1 week out from the end of session at that point. So probably have lots more actions for you to take. And with that, I think that's everything. Any final comments or questions?
I would be interested in doing the editorial.
Oh, great.
So anything you can provide would be great.
Great, thank you, Ramona. I'll reach out and then we can chat about how I can best support you in that.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
And where do you give these trainings on Lobby Day? Where do people meet?
Good question. We will meet at the Capitol in the
Okay.
basement. Which is like the first floor, and it's where you go
Okay.
in. There's a cafeteria with lots of tables, and that's where we meet and do the training at a table, and then we all kind of move upstairs as a group.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your participation, and hope to see you at Lobby Day. And thank you. We'll see you next month, if not before.
Bye.
Thanks.